All right. Okay. Good morning, everyone. So welcome to today's SESIMO webinar, Skills for Advanced Manufacturing, Unlocking the Industrial Transition. We're still waiting for some attendees to join, but I think we can already start the webinar as the time is clicking. All right. So thank you very much for joining the webinar in order to discuss some interesting aspects of the green transition, of the green job. Green jobs, as we witness today, the skills of the workforce have become more crucial than ever for manufacturers to align with the new technologies. It is no secret that without the right skills, individuals risk falling behind, and this challenge is further compounded by the fact that around 55% of European companies are facing difficulties in finding a qualified workforce. Therefore, today we have gathered here to explore various aspects, including some mega trends in green jobs for advanced manufacturing, understanding the obstacles in identifying the green skills and professional profiles, examining some opportunities and challenges to accomplish the green transformation of industries, discussing some approaches and strategies in how to support industries, and also highlighting what is the role of training and education. So in order to provide a comprehensive insights on these topics, we are happy to have today with us 4 esteemed speakers from different sectors. So regarding the practical parts of the webinar, each speaker will hold a presentation around 10 minutes, after which we'll engage in a Q&A session where you will be able to pose a question in the chat box. Just please remember to mention the name of the speaker you are addressing in your question. And please note that the webinar will be also recorded, and we will provide you with the recording link and PowerPoint presentations afterwards. So now I will pass the floor to our first speaker, Dr. Lukas Kleiner-Ruschekamp. He's a coordinator of Local Labor Market Analysis, OECD, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. So Lukas, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you very much. Delighted to be here. I appreciate the invitation. Let me share my screen, and please just confirm quickly whether you can all see my screen.
Yes,
excellent.
We can
Great.
See.
Thanks. So as I was saying, it's a pleasure to be here and to be discussing the green transition, in particular with the focus on the manufacturing sector, which really does play a crucial role in delivering the green transition in the first place. Now, it's a little bit of background information. I coordinate the work at the OECD on local labor markets as part of the LEAD Forum, and we recently published a report that constructed and provided novel evidence on the labor market implications of the green transition, in particular focusing on its local and subnational implications. So looking at the geography of both the risk and the opportunities for labor markets, and differences across sectors and for different types of workers. We call this report Bridging the Great Green Divide. So in the next 10 minutes, I'll give you a little bit of an overview of what we find, what are some of the main issues and key trends, and what is sort of missing in terms of evidence, where more collective work and empirical analysis and policy work is needed. So this is our, we call it flagship report that comes out every 2 years, looking at sometimes thematic issues, and this publication, this year's edition, which was published in March, looked at the green transition. And part of the reason why we started looking and working on the green transition more than a year ago was that we actually found out and saw and recognized that even though everyone has been talking about the green transition for a long time, we know very little about its labor market impact. In particular, two questions are not really have not really been well explored. The first one is the where. So where are new opportunities emerging, but also where. So which type of places, regions, cities are facing new risks. And the other question that hasn't been really well answered so far is the who. Like who are the type of workers that might benefit from new green job opportunities, but who's also at risk of due to this transition. So this is what we do in this report, which consists of 4 major chapters. The first one, we revise and review the existing evidence on the impact of green policies, of the green transition on the economy, and in particular on its impact on the labor market, on jobs and skills. Actually revealing that we know very little. In the second part, we compile novel evidence for 30 OECD countries and regions in those 30 OECD countries, as well as differences across different types of sectors and types of workers. We also look at the past to see whether we can actually learn anything from other major labor market transformations that OECD countries have undergone. If you think about globalization, demographic change, the exit from coal, but also digitalization, which is still ongoing, but has been ongoing for a couple of decades. And then we look to the future and focusing on employment and skills policies, lay out policy recommendations on local actions for a green future. So as part of this job, by trying to examine and gauge the labor market impact, in particular local labor market impact, we are faced one daunting challenge, which is we first need to define green jobs. And so what we do in this report, we use a bottom-up approach, which essentially defines jobs based on occupational details. So looking at the tasks and skills different occupations entail, and then defining a job if it consists to a significant degree of green tasks, that is tasks that either support sustainable development directly or help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And so we do this for 30 OECD countries and their respective regions. This approach offers a couple of striking, important advantages to some of the other approaches that exist for measuring green jobs or the green economy. And I'd like to highlight maybe 3 here. The first one is that you can actually zoom in on the geography. You can zoom in on regional and local differences, which are important, as I will show you. The second advantage is that it's sort of sector blind. It takes into account that all sectors, such as manufacturing or a subset of manufacturing, such as advanced manufacturing, can make a contribution to the green transition. So when we talk about the green transition and achieving climate objectives, we should not restrict ourselves solely to perhaps inherently green sectors such as renewable energy, but should really also consider the possible contribution of different types of occupations across all sectors of the economy. The third aspect why such an approach might be useful is because it's directly linked to policy actions. It's based on occupations, their tasks, which are closely linked to skills, which provide the important information that we need to design training, upskilling, retraining policies and offers. So let me highlight a couple of findings. One surprising finding for us is actually that, looking at the last 10 to 15 years, we find very little change in the greenness of local labor markets or regional labor markets across the OECD. The share of workers with jobs that consist to at least 10% of green tasks has only mildly increased over this time period. At the same time, we see some encouraging signs, some positive momentum. When we look at big data on online vacancies or labor market demand, we see that the demand for green jobs has been outpacing the demand for other jobs and the labor market demand in general since the beginning of the COVID pandemic. When we look at the geography of green jobs, we see a couple of important striking observations here. The first one is that the share of green jobs, the regional employment share of green jobs, differs significantly across countries, but also within countries. We have some regions, oftentimes sort of regions surrounding a capital city, that have an employment share of green jobs of 30% or more. But also we have regions with less 10% or less. within countries, we see a number of places, a number of countries that where differences between the top and the leading bottom region amount to more than 10 percentage points. We also see huge spatial differences in terms of polluting jobs. So jobs that are probably at risk during the green transition, and these are even more spatially concentrated than in other than green jobs. One thing that we notice is that green jobs are heavily biased towards men. Across the OECD and a subset of OECD countries, we would need to move at least 20 million women into green jobs to reach gender parity. And on total, women account for less than 1/3 of green jobs across the OECD. And we don't find a single region across the OECD where women make up 1/3 of green jobs. We also find divides across workers within regional labor markets. We see that until now, green jobs are primarily held by more educated and more highly skilled workers that actually also receive a wage premium compared to jobs that require similar experience or skills. So until now, it's mainly highly skilled, highly educated workers that have benefited from green job opportunities. Now, this might change in the future, but until now, that's what we find. One thing to note, and I think this is quite important also for the manufacturing sector, is that workers in polluting jobs, so workers in jobs that might be facing more disruptive change in terms of skills requirements or perhaps jobs displacements, are much less likely to participate in job-related training, actually half as likely as workers in green jobs. We also find divides across firms by size. We see that large firms account for a disproportionately large share of green jobs. So put reversely, SMEs, or especially small enterprises, account for a significantly lower share of green jobs than jobs overall. Now, what does this indicate? Probably it suggests some of the capacity constraints we're well aware of in terms of SMEs being able to offer training, upskilling opportunities, but and retraining opportunities, but also facing constraints in terms of the adoption of new technologies. And it might also speak to the fact that that across, for instance, Europe, firms are really heavily documenting and reporting a shortage of workers with green skills. 80% of firms across Europe, for instance, report such a green skills shortage, and this might be particularly acute among SMEs. Now, SMEs. I mentioned SMEs because I think that matters quite a bit also for the manufacturing sector. But a couple of more observations on the manufacturing sector more generally. When we dissect our analysis in terms of green and polluting jobs across OECD regions, we see that manufacturing is perhaps unsurprisingly among the most polluting sectors. So the sector, one of the sectors with the highest shares of polluting jobs, the highest pollution intensity. Almost 50% of jobs in manufacturing are classified as polluting. So, it's clearly a sector that will undergo a massive transformation, will face quite a few risks as well, especially for workers that are employed in the manufacturing sector. But I think there are a couple of caveats here that we need to emphasize. The first one is the observation that already, in fact, manufacturing it does not only have a lot of polluting jobs, but there's also a significant share of jobs that are green. And one thing to note is that manufacturing does not mean manufacturing, in a sense that there are huge differences across sub-industries in the manufacturing sector. When we, for instance, think about electronics manufacturing or the manufacturing of equipment, those are tend to be greener than manufacturing sub-industries such as those related to textile, coal, refinery, and so on. Also, crucially to note, there's significant greening potential. There will be no green transition if some of the more polluting sectors such as manufacturing, but also construction, extraction service industries will green significantly. Hence, they do play a crucial role for achieving climate targets. But again, I think really to emphasize when we dissect or sort of categorize or discuss the green transition in two aspects, such as the just aspect, making sure that the transition works for all workers, all places, and all sectors, and the enabling part, we face a major bottleneck here in the enabling part. That is really a lot of sectors are facing massive labor shortages, so lack of workers, but then even more so a lack of workers with the right skills. And this is in particular very relevant for green skills. Just very briefly, some of the policy issues that we discussed in our report, and we invite you to consult the report for much more detail and concrete policy recommendations. But I just want to emphasize a couple of dimensions that I think are particularly important for the manufacturing sector, which are the following. The first one is the really setting the foundation for the right type of policies by improving labor market intelligence. That means by having a better understanding of how this transformation unfolds, and what the skills are that will drive the transformation and will be needed, and also what skills might not be needed in the future, and what types of job might face redundancy. So really improving labor market intelligence. Until now, a lot of skills forecast, skills anticipation exercises in a lot of OECD countries lack the sufficient detail when it comes to different sectors and their evolution, as well as to different places. So they're often at times at the national level, but the devil really lies in the detail here. And this is crucial for really shaping effective, responsive and place-based adult learning systems, local adult learning systems that both help workers adapt to the changing labor market and facilitate the green transition in the first place. Especially when it comes to local adult learning systems, we see that two things need to happen. The first one is they need to ramp up massively, because right now too many workers are not working age workers or working aged individuals are not participating in training and job-related training regularly. And we also see that, in fact, those workers that would benefit the most from training, so that would face disruption, for instance, due to automation, but certainly also due to the green transition, are the least likely to participate in training. So we need to ramp up the offer, but also make it more inclusive and make sure that those workers get involved. And here employers, for instance, also in the manufacturing sector, play a crucial role. They need to help, they need to get involved, they need to be incentivized, and also be aware of the possible benefits for them in offering retraining, upskilling opportunities to the workers, and designing some of the training courses to make them really effective and speak to their local needs. And the second part, so this is the ramping up part and revising part. The second part is really making sure that a lot of the training content nowadays takes into account the impact of environmental and green regulation and policies. So really fosters the type of skills that are required in a increasingly green economy. One of some of the skills that really come out in our analysis are both technical skills, especially related to STEM subjects. And here we face huge bottlenecks for increasing the representation of women, but also some more transversal skills that allow workers to move across different jobs in different sectors. So what next, and what collectively the OECD, what the OECD and what we at the LEAD program at the OECD, but also what collectively we need to work on. Here I just highlighted a couple of issues that I think are relevant here as well. The first one is really getting a better understanding of green skills and identifying the specific green skills that are needed in particular sectors, in particular regions, and also then determining to what extent the existing labor force can actually satisfy those needs. Where are there gaps or mismatches between the demand and the supply of green skills. The second one is really supporting workers, but also the sectors that are undergoing a massive transformation, enabling workers to transition between jobs, so within and out of polluting and declining sectors and jobs, and that really critically hinges on the training they receive, but also on the skills and their personal characteristics that they have at this stage. Third priority clearly is really scaling up sectors, or supporting scaling up of sectors that drive the green transition. And by supporting, we mean helping sectors and policymakers address the most prominent skills and labor challenges those sectors face. Now, this applies both to classic green sectors such as clean tech, but also enabling technology. When we think about, for instance, semiconductors that are are sort of inherent parts in a lot of these clean tech products. But certainly also sectors that are undergoing a massive transformation. When we think about automotives, chemicals, etc., really helping those sectors address the training needs and labor challenges and the attractiveness issues that some of these sectors face in the first place. I'll stop here for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Luca, for this very great presentation. You gave us many insights on the share of green jobs that are different from country to country, region to region, some divides across gender, workers and skills and pay. It was very interesting. I think we already have one question for you, but we will answer it during the Q&A session. So for now, we can pass to our next speaker. Miss Paola Fantini is the Director of Education at EIT Manufacturing. So the floor is yours.
Yes, I'm trying to, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm sharing my screen. I'm sorry, I could not, I didn't manage to join from my laptop. So I'm trying to share the screen from my phone, and I hope I can do that. Let me.
Okay.
Okay. I hope you are seeing now my. Can you see the slide or coming?
No, we cannot. But what I can do, I can share this.
Yeah, but one second. Give me 1 second, and let's see if it works in this way. Can you see now?
No, unfortunately,
no. Okay, then
I will let me share the slides for you.
Okay. The backup. Okay, yes, thank you.
Just 1 moment.
Okay, then, well, I'm very grateful for the great introduction that Lucas made on the topic, because it resonates very much with also what we would like to speak about today. Coming from, while OECD, of course, has a global perspective, I start with a more European focus. Okay, thank you. Yes, so in Europe, we have a very clear political message that stimulate all the industry, all of us to go towards the Green Deal, the Zero Net Industry Act, so towards the industry transition. And it's also very clear that skills are at the core of this process. I'm Paola Fantini, and I'm the Education Director of EIT Manufacturing, which is the knowledge and innovation community dedicated to manufacturing. Can we go to the second slide? Oh, sorry. Yeah, in my presentation, I will then touch quickly on the trends for the green transition and the jobs to touch the needs and finally give you some hint of what we are doing for skilling solutions about the, filling the skill gaps. So thank you. If you can go to the next one. If the green topics are at the core and top priority in Europe, on a global scale, according to this recent survey that was made by the World Economic Forum, the respondent said that the transformation of the businesses is driven by green investment, meaning that this is one of the first 10 thematics or drivers, but it's not the first one. The first one is still the adoption of new technologies, but still on a global scale, being in the top 10 is something. And I think this is also in line with what Lucas exposed about slow progress so far, but a little bit of inversion of trends for the future. And more interesting, if you go to the next slide. No, then skip this one and let's go, okay, directly, thank you. No, the next one, please. I skip, okay. It's from a job perspective, the green transition is thought as the most important and most impactful driver, meaning that there will be, going green will generate more jobs, so is supposed to generate the most jobs in the future, which is and not only green per se, but also other topics that are closely associated with the green transition, like the application of the environmental sustainability and governance standards, and also the reduction of the length of the supply chain, which goes hand to hand with diminishing the transportation and therefore the consumption of energy and the pollution. In the next slide, yes, we have also, so if this is the world or the global perspective, as a EIT Manufacturing being an association with different affiliates covering with network across Europe, we also do our small research in our networks to understand what are the needs of our ecosystem through a survey and the consultation process that we run also this year, 2023, same time as the World Economic Forum. And what I can tell you is that the finding is that also for us, please go to the next slide. The top priority in Europe in the EIT manufacturing ecosystem is sustainability. So the skills that are requested in order to identify and apply the technologies that enable the companies to make this transition. In general, what I would like to highlight here is that the approach, the needs are to have a pervasive type of education and training. So this, I think, resonates very much with what Lucas said before. So the need is not only to train and upskill a small group of people in the companies, but to at least create awareness across all the departments and all the hierarchical level of the organization. It's important that the skills embrace a life cycle perspective that encompasses the design of products, the identification of the materials, the production processes, and in a perspective of circularity. Then it's important the skills that have been identified as priority are also the skills that relates with the capacity of taking advantage, comply and leverage existing standards and best practices. And finally, last but not least, I would say, to be able to set up monitoring systems to be able to plan and assess the progress towards greenification and more sustainability with the appropriate metrics. So the next slide, please. what kind of approaches and solution we have started to implement. I have selected 4 examples just to give you flavor of our approach and how we tackle with this with our educational training with reference to green skills. So the first example is a program that we run together with our the other KICs, meaning the other knowledge innovation communities that operates in Europe in different sectors like raw materials, health, food, manufacturing, and others. And this is very much in line with addressing one of the gaps that Lucas highlighted, women. So this program is particularly addressing teenagers, girls in high schools to create awareness and basic competencies on circular economy, together with digital and entrepreneurial skills. It's women can really, there is a huge potential that is not exploited yet of women and how they can contribute to green jobs and to the transformation of our industry. So I believe this initiative is very strategic and also quite a large scale. The goal is to reach out to 40,000 girls. At the moment, 26. The actual number achieved so far is 26,000. So the next slide. Again, to tell you what target group we address, this program, Learn 4.0, address manufacturing operators, because also the behavior, the ideas, the proposals that comes from the shop floor may be very, very relevant in helping the transformation of the green industry. Here, the program is devoted to sustainable production and sustainability and green, but together with other type of skills that are mostly related to digitalization and Industry 4.0. In the next project, we see a different this is a project, a program that is led by industry related to the automotive supply chain. And in this project, the main emphasis is on circularity, addressing employees at large, but also vocational students. All these 3 examples, please skip the next one and go to the second one. All these 3 examples are, not to the next, sorry, down. Okay, yes, thank you. Are structured program with digital learning and also associated with other physical learning that overall gives blended learners. This last example is as a different approach. It organizes a series of deep dive workshop with the company participating and learning and exchanging about approaches and methods to introduce lean manufacturing practices and lean and remanufacturing practices in the companies. This was also very successful in terms of participation of companies. So this is a little bit some, appetizers or examples of what we do for addressing these skill gaps and preparing also pipelines of talents towards green jobs. And if you go to the next slide, please, Hola. No, okay, yes. I would summarize in this way. For us, it's very important that green training is not something that comes in isolation. It belongs to the most, little bit wider family of competence and skills that relates to sustainability. and it takes a lot of advantage of being coupled with digital skills. And as far as we are concerned, since our approach is also to empower people with the innovation, with transversal skills, with innovation and entrepreneurial, we think that this is the right recipe, because more and more in the future, human beings will not be only instruments or enablers, but they will be more and more drivers for the evolution of industry, for the transition towards green, but also towards the being able to address the challenges that will emerge in the future. So this is very much at the core of our approach and our beliefs, I would say, our model. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Paola. It was very interesting, your presentation, and indeed, as you just said, humans will drive the green and digital transition, and I think it's something very important. And thank you also for giving some insights regarding some very interesting projects that also address the part of gender, of women to participate in more in green jobs, in circular economy. Okay, now we'll go to our third speaker, Mr. Isaac Egurbide. He's Deputy Director at the Instituto de Máquina Herramienta. It's an educational campus specializing in advanced and digital manufacturing. So the floor is yours.
Okay. So are you seeing my presentation?
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, thank you for the invitation to CESIMO, Ola and Philip. I think that I'm going to show you a new approach. We start the bigger scope of approach, then EIT, and now I'm going to show you a very particular and specific approach from vocational and engineering school. Okay. I'm going to try to show you a local experience based in the Basque Country related to the AFM cluster. First of all, I'm going to explain in briefly what was that Machine Tool Institute. Machine Tool Institute, we are vocational training school. We are also university school. As you said, Ola, we are related to the advanced manufacturing cluster. We are very active institution in training for employment, in lifelong learning concept. And we also developing research, applied research and innovation projects with companies. Okay. And all of these subjects, products, things related to this ecosystem. We are part of AFM. AFM is the machine tool, as you know, is a machine tool association, a Spanish Machine Tool Association. AFM is part of CESIMO, is associated to CESIMO. And we are very related to these ecosystems. So when I am speaking about what you want in this presentation, I am speaking about advanced digital manufacturing cluster in Spain, okay? Mostly in the Basque Country, okay? But in general in Spain. We are part of this ecosystem and we are trying to support and answer to the advanced and digital manufacturing companies and people related to this sector. AFM, as you see here, it has more than 700 associate companies. And we are working together to support these companies to give a smooth and real transition to ecological transition, or also in digital transition. In the last year, we are very involved together with AFM, trying to boost advanced manufacturing, digital factory, in machining, robotics, automatization, additive manufacturing, trying to, as I said to you, trying to boost and to support companies and people in these transformations. So to start with speaking about the green competencies, we are part of these initiatives. AFM has a working group related to the green manufacturing, and we also involved in this strategy. AFM has different strategies and objectives to support companies in this area, and we are part of this strategy, mainly focusing in people and mainly focusing in training needs, in re-skilling, upskilling, and this type of approach related to the people and their learning processes and training and learning processes. So the first step, our approach in this area is related to is coordinated to the AFM cluster strategy. In this sense, we are involved in different transition, trends, regulations, and these trends and regulations involve companies in the need to produce less waste, use clean energy, promote eco-design, use low-impact materials, and consume less materials, quantify and optimize waste, trends that will gradually become legally and culturally mandatory. Okay, so I explained you in which environment we are involved, and in this ecosystem, a reality is in which we move and in which we must try to contribute through education and training. And this is our reality. Our reality is advanced and digital manufacturing reality. Most of them SMEs, manufacturing companies, machine tool companies, and we are trying to support them in transformation processes, trying to boost new skills will be required in this ecosystem or environment. As I write in the slide, I don't know, some jobs will disappear, new ones will emerge, but practically all of them will be transformed. When we are speaking about nowadays, today's machinists, assembler, workers in maintenance and assembly, or engineers, it's not the same it's not the same job that they have 10 or 15 years ago. And in the future, and in near future, these skills, these competencies are going to change radically. Okay, so we are focused in this change. So in this reality, we are acting from 2 points of view. The first one, institutional approach, and the second one, the training approach. Okay. In an institutional way, or in an institutional field, as an educational and training center that we have to apply to ourselves what we are trying to teach. We are a school, we are a training center, and we have to have our own strategy. We have to be environmentally sustainable, and we have to offer students, to our students, a real environmental consistent learning space. We are trying to teach them in this reality, in these competencies, so we have to apply them. As an institutional way, these requirements also. In this sense, we have a circular economy project. Well, we have our corporate environmental footprint. We have environmental ISO. We did the energy audit, and so on and so on. And we are making different investments in this regard, in clean energy related to the photovoltaics, industrial home, industrial domotics, presence detectors, and other examples. Okay. And on the other approach, the training strategy. In the training strategy, we have what we call as a 2030, agenda strategy, in which every year we address objectives. Each year, a theme is defined, a new theme, and this year, this theme is responsible production and consumption. In this strategy, we define that we call as eco-representatives. Each group of students has one eco-representative, and we are supporting in these representatives to promote communication, diagnosis of the workshop, initiative related to the recycling, etc. We also started with a new initiative to learn about European experiences in these related ideas. Okay, this is the way to function in our Agenda 2030 strategy. Inside this agenda, we are doing different improvements related to the subjects themselves. We are developing the design for environmental sustainability, design of the life cycle product, and so on and so on. We are designing a new subject related to additive manufacturing. So we are trying to improve our knowledges or our subjects that we are teaching to our students. I have to explain you also our learning methodology. We are using project or problem-based learning, mainly at vocational training, and we are improving it also in engineering studies. So what we are trying to do, what we are doing, is to incorporate this concept in these learning challenges. This concepts like sustainable production as a variable to develop in problem and project-based learning examples. Sorry. As an example, we are involved in Erasmus project called STEAM Active. The objective is to propose a suitable tool for the PBL design of multidisciplinary teaching learning sequences for engineering studies. Okay, and one of the mandatory criteria that we are using is to take into account the environmental impact, sustainability, and the circular economy. Here you have a specific example related to the machining processes. Okay, so in these examples, the company must perform the machining of a part in 3 different machining centers. So as I write in the slide, after analyzing the specification of each process, it analyzes the most competitive based on these criteria. the energy consumption, the efficiency of the machine, the speed of the processes, the environmental impact, and the economic impact. So what we are trying to do is to involve these concepts in all of our learning tasks, in all of our learning projects. This is the basic idea. This is something compulsory, this is something transversal, and we have to use this concept to develop any problem or project, or any decision. So what we are trying to do is to answer the training needs of the industry, trying to support them in this transition and in these transformation processes. So this is our example. We are a BET and engineering school, and this is the way that we are trying to boost green competencies in our environment, in our BET and engineering subjects and offer.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Gurbido, for your presentation. Indeed, including sustainable production and circular economy into training is very crucial nowadays for students in order to raise awareness and offer students environmental learning space. So it was very insightful indeed. So now we're also running out of time, but okay, let's go to our last but not least speaker, Ms. Bianca Maria Colosimo. She's professor and deputy head of the Department of Mechanical Engineering at Politecnico di Milano. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. I know we are running out of time, so I will try to, let's say, provide my perspective, since a lot of things has been already said. The first thing I'd like to mention is that I'm coming from a large technical school where we are focusing on training and all the learning path. I want to mention that we are really highly ranked in the international rankings, and most of this is coming from employer reputation. So we are always interested in finding the new ways for training our engineers, in this case, because we are a technical university, so mainly focusing on engineering, architecture, and design, but also the design side and the architecture side is quite important at this point in time. And the other issue that I'd like to mention is just to introduce myself as one that has been always trying to connect the side of data mining and data analysis and quality data analysis on the other side with manufacturing. So I just want to mention, and all this CV, the red side is my manufacturing side, the blue side is more focusing on my data mining and AI, let's say, or data science, let's say, world. Just to say that I see a lot of connection also for moving in the green transition, some sort of connection also with the digital transition. So this is why I really do believe that going with the twin transition is going to be make the difference also for people that has been training or is experiencing some long life learning path. Just three, let's say, key message. The first, it's coming from the strategic roadmaps. I will just provide three, let's say, very short, brief key words, let's say, in three strategic roadmaps, and then I will just make some example, let's say, on the way in which I do believe that there's the need of new people that is going to face the challenge of moving green. So if just by comparing the three strategic roadmaps, some of them coming from the US, one focusing on materials and manufacturing from the UK, and the two, let's say, strategic agenda coming from the European Commission, focusing on manufacturing or materials, all these three, let's say, viewpoints all share some relevant keywords. First of all, the workforce. All these strategic agenda are mentioning that we need new people that is trained differently to face some challenges that, surprisingly or maybe not surprisingly, are always the same. So on the first one, it's moving green. And we can just compare the US, the UK, and the European Commission main messages. The second one is, let's say, focusing on digital and maybe facing also some new challenges, also going in the direction of sustainability rather than just environmental friendly, so going in the life science world. But the other key challenge is always related with using the digital side and the Industry 4.0 knowledge just to, let's say, help the green transition to happen, combined with some need of being resilient, especially after the COVID. All the people was kind of concerned on how to make our ecosystem more resilient. And I like the idea of this, let's say, holistic perspective that I think it's going to ask for new profiles for people that on the one side needs to have some sort of connection between design, materials, manufacturing, and end of life and circularity. I'm not just mentioning end of life because it's the first thing that everybody thinks about, let's say, moving green, but also in combining skills on the one side. So even, let's say, training people that needs to train people. I think that this is a need. Relations, so it means being able to connect, and so having an horizontal perspective and trying also to bridge the gap between what is done in the university, research and innovation, and what is the business that the companies needs to face, and regulations. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done also in this case. So I see in all of these key elements, the needs for vertical training, but also some sort of horizontal training of people that is able to manage all the different aspects with some holistic perspective. I will just make some example. I mean, in a new direction of new products that needs to have additional performances, they should be light enough and going in the direction of reduce the waste of materials. I can see that there are some common, let's say, problems. These are all products that have been produced by one technology. In this case, it's additive. I like to point out that some technologies are able to, let's say, combine better the connection between the design, manufacturing, and end of life. And I will make an example of the additive manufacturing that from other viewpoints is maybe more expensive than the other. But on the other side, if we look to the, let's say, well-known complexity for free dimension of additive manufacturing, so that the manufacturing cost per product is almost flat, let's say, that despite of the geometric complexity, I think we can use this complexity for free and rename, in terms of design of new products, and rename it as complexity for green. And so using and training people in this dimension of new technologies that are able to foster the green transition, we can possibly create new products that are going to help the sustainable mobility, thanks to the weight reduction, waste reduction, that is really important in some sector, aerospace among the all. We can move in some sort of customization idea without, let's say, waiting and wasting a lot of resources in trying to learn how to make products that are also customized. We can use additive for repair, and so extending the lifetime and also improving the mechanical performances and thermomechanical performances for extending the lifetime. Or we can even think about reshaping the logistic and the supply chain. So just sending information rather than materials and components, thanks to the reduction of the number of components that has a significant impact in terms of the CO2 fingerprint of the supply chain. All this type of transition, we need to, let's say, help the new generation of designer going in this direction with a clear knowledge on materials and processes and manufacturing processes that you can use, but also we can enjoy, let's say, all the digital side of the digital transition. In this case, I'm just showing that we can stay in the digital side for a long time before going and waste material, energy, and resources. So we can design a new generation of product. We can use digital twin for simulating what's going on. We can take a lot of data while the process is working, just to be sure that we are able to avoid waste and defects. And we can, at the end of the day, even avoid disruptive testing, thanks to some new technology that are able to do non-destructive inspection like X-ray CT. So staying again in the digital world and, let's say, creating some sort of improvement so that all these steps are done in the direction of moving green. I think that this holistic perspective is already, let's say, well known for many actors that are trying to create a new generation of people. I'm just referring to the Skills for AM, let's say, project that is exactly going in the direction to sustainability for additive manufacturing. There are some national plans for recovery and resilience that are following the idea of creating new know-how in circular and sustainable. I'm just talking about the Italian one that has a specific national recovery and resilience plan, huge project that is called Made in Italy, Circular and Sustainable. And there are a lot of initiatives also from the EIT or the Competence Center that are going to, let's say, reshape the way in which we used to train people and also think about long life learning. This is just my message for today, and I will just stop sharing my screen.
All right. Thank you, Bianca, very much for this insightful and quite interesting presentation. It was indeed quite fast. So it was indeed, the EU speaks a lot about the twin transition and how the digital transition can enable the green transition of industrial enterprises. And it was indeed also the additive manufacturing has a lot of benefits to help the to ensure this green transformation of industries, since it's quite lightweight and energy efficient. So I think we can now have the Q&A session very briefly. So I can already see that there's some questions. Okay, so there's some questions to you, Lucas. So they are regarding the definition of green skills. What is the definition of green skills and green jobs? Also, what are the types of specific skill gaps in green jobs? And what, when looking at green skills, do we see transversal skills being deployed? So these would be the questions. Feel free to answer.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, and thanks a lot for the questions. I'll try to answer all of them. I noted them down throughout the other presentations. I think the first one was on specific skills gaps. Now, these are, I think, what we see, both technical gaps as well as some just reflecting the emergence of new roles. So, for instance, technical sort of skills gaps in terms of green skills that are of technical nature oftentimes refer to or relate to new technologies that are employed, or new processes. Think, for instance, about also the transformation of the sector, such as automotives, where completely new roles are emerging due to the proliferation of now electric vehicles and the battery technology. And here we see sort of also a shift, not only new technical skills, but also the new roles emerging, or an increase of roles that were not really traditionally present in such a sector, such as the rise of the importance of software engineers and so on. But we also see some other roles that are emerging that are sort of less technical of nature, but more refer to the sort of an awareness of environmental concerns and issues, processes, and new concepts or measurement, as for instance, the increasing demand for workers that employ are utilized in positions such as sustainability managers, ESG analysts, etc. That has sort of an awareness of new concepts and measurement issues and so on. But some of so we have a lot of technical skills when it comes to these green skills gaps, but there's also rising importance of transversal skills. Those could be general or generic analytical skills. How do you process information? How do you process new ideas and concepts? That is increasingly important. But also, thinking creatively and innovatively, as well as more broadly, sort of the ability to learn, right? Learning to learn. So all of these are particularly important because I think this came through in all presentations. There's an increasing urgency to boost lifelong learning. Then we would expect workers to be more mobile than they have been in the past, and that definitely requires the ability to learn. So learning to learn and processing new information and thinking analytically, all of which are skills that transversal skills that allow workers to fill out different positions, perhaps work in different sectors throughout their career.
All right, thank you, Lucas, very much for your answer. Okay, okay, there is also one question for Isaka. So the question is, what are the conceptual aspects and lessons in such sessions? And if you're using simulations, because in innovation, in pedagogical methods it seems like innovation pedagogical methods are needed. So could you please tell us what are the conceptual aspects of this, and if you're using simulations?
Okay, thank you for the question. I'm not sure if I'm going to answer properly because I'm not an expert in pedagogical things, but I can say you that the design and the conceptual work is very important. So the people who is involved in this problem-based learning, challenge-based learning, there are experts in pedagogical area also. Okay, we have involved techniques, teachers really involved in the process, but we have also involved in this design, and for example in this Erasmus project, people who is I don't know, expert in pedagogical design. Okay. And as you said, the design and the conceptual ideas are very important. We are using more and more tools to simulate processes, sure. As other speakers explained before, we think that both green transition and digital transitions going together, supporting clearly this transformation, and we are just using simulation. We are trying to apply in the learning processes augmented reality, virtual reality, CAD, CAM, and several tools to improve the learning experience and to be more significant this learning experience. Yes.
Right, thank you, Isaka. I don't know if there are some other questions. For the moment, I do not see. All right, since we're also running out of time, unfortunately, we need to wrap up already the webinar. All right, today we indeed gained valuable insights on the essential steps needed to equip the workforce with the necessary skills for the green transformation of manufacturing. So let's summarize some of the key messages we heard today. So what we heard is some local actions that we need to take for the green future, some geographical differences that exist in green skills, some training approaches for upskilling and reskilling of industrial workforce, the importance of sustainable production and circular economy for the training of the workforce, and that all jobs will be probably transformed in the future. And these new competencies, new green skills that will emerge, they will change radically. And we also saw how the digital transition goes hand in hand with the green transition, and also the benefits of additive manufacturing for enabling industries to embrace this green transformation. Recording will be published for future reference. You will receive a link to access the recording along with the PowerPoint presentations. Thank you all for joining us today, especially big thank you goes to our STEM speakers for sharing their expertise, and also for the attendees for their engagement with several questions. I hope you gained valuable insights today about emerging green skills in advanced manufacturing, and we hope also to see you on our next event. And also like to mention that SESIMO has also developed recently a report, skills report called Transformation of Manufacturing, Embracing Digital and Green Skills, which reflects on some aspects on the new emerging digital and green professional profiles in advanced manufacturing, which is on our website if you want to have a look. All right, then, I think we can close the webinar today. Thank you very much all again, and I hope we will see you again on our future webinar.